Good evening, Michael. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening, Tom. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, we do have a quorum, so I would say anytime you want to start, you can.
Well, I will start with an apology. I've been working on the book today and I've gotten pulled down so many rabbit holes. I just now realized that the meeting started. So I am utterly unprepared, but that's okay. We will call the meeting to order then. And first thing we need to do is approve the minutes of the last meeting, if that's correct. We need to call the roll for Deb, don't we? I'm sorry. So, Tom Clemens here.
Ann Aldrich.
Fernell Doyle.
Greg Smith.
Michael Lushbaugh.
Okay. Thank you. And minutes of the last meeting need to be approved. Any comments, corrections, additions to the minutes as circulated? Hearing none, I'll call for a motion to approve.
I move
make
to
a
approve the
motion we
minutes of the last
approve.
meeting. Greg Smith.
Okay, Greg Smith has moved it. Second,
Michael, I second it.
and Michael Lushbaugh has seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, we're underway. And Spielman Road. We have an addition to an existing structure. This is in the Downsville Rural Village. Everybody has had a chance to take a look at this, I hope.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And Megan has put up the illustration here.
And I
It
did
looks
want
like-
to let sorry, Tom, I
Go
did want
ahead.
to let everybody know that the property owner and the contractor were invited, but I do not see them on tonight. I did speak with the property owners while I was on the site to take pictures, so I can try to answer any questions that you guys might have. And I did try to summarize some of the points that the property owner went over on this slide that I thought you guys might have questions about as you were reviewing the materials that were provided with the permit. So if there's any questions that you have of me, I'm here to answer them if you need it.
Okay. It looks like they are putting this addition out to the side, and from what I can see and read, they had made some effort to make it match the existing house.
Yes, that's correct. They're making the root pitch of the roof, the siding, and then the roof on it will be metal instead of the asphalt shingle on the current porch. And then the detailing that you see on the house with the siding up at the tops of the eaves is actually vinyl. It's not original, and you can tell from the original inventory photos that it wasn't there at that time. So that was added afterwards. So it will be the same color siding and same color vinyl for the shutters as well.
Okay, anyone have any comments about this request? So we're seeing the street front of the house. And then, Megan, if I understand it, this is going to extend out from which side? I'm not,
When you're facing the front of the house here I'm standing on Spielman. So when you're facing the house, it's going to extend out right where that existing porch is right here. And it's only going to go out, I think it's 15 feet. Let me double check that.
okay. So the porch is going to be replaced by the extension.
Yes.
All right.
And they are keeping the exterior door with the transom over top of it. They aren't removing the door and switching that out. They're very keen to keep what materials they can. And she actually is going to try to reuse the columns and things. Even though they're not original, she does like to do crafting and that kind of thing. So she's going to try to reuse those on site. But the materials that can't be reused, they don't have any intention of salvaging those because they're not original to the house. They're just rotted wood or vinyl materials. So those will just be disposed of accordingly.
Megan, Greg here.
Yes.
So the porch that we see there on the left, was that a not original porch in its entirety, I suppose?
The porch was there in the, I'll scoot along here in the pictures and show you the porch was there in the inventory photo. The house itself, it's an interesting house because even though it's right along the pike, the door is to the side. So I would imagine it could have had that landing there originally. Edie might know better based on the age of the structure, whether that type of entry cover was commonly used, but I would imagine there's been something there covering that door.
I suspect that the door was actually on the front of the building originally.
okay.
I don't know, but it's not that common to have the side entrance.
Ah,
Yeah, I mean, is that center window on the downstairs originally a door that they converted into a window when they lost all their front yard to the widening of Spielman Road?
Right.
No. But
Doesn't matter now.
no, it really doesn't.
And I will say, some of the pictures, I tried to convey it. So this is the porch here in the right-hand photo. The addition will come out into this grassy area that's somewhat level. So this really, they don't have a lot of space to be able to put this. And the space is going to be used for restrooms and stuff on the first floor, which they don't really have right now, to help them keep it livable. They're a retired couple and they need that extra space to keep the structure moving forward. And the backyard is just a giant rock break. It's very,
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see some of it here, but it's a very narrow space. That fence line is their property line. There in that left-hand photo, and it's just rock in the backyard. So they had thought about where else to site it, and it's really not too many options for them.
Where are
Okay.
they putting their entrance then?
For the addition, we'll have a door at the very end of it, similar to how in the similar fashion to where the door is now. It'll just be straight out from that, with a small landing there. So it will be, let me bring that other picture back up. There will be a door. That porch is pretty much the right width, so it'll extend out, and then there'll be a door at the end of that, probably connecting in to this sidewalk again.
Well, I mean, it's really none of our business, but if they're going to enter the house through a bathroom.
So
That's what I was thinking.
their main their main doorway is that doorway on the left-hand picture. That's the doorway that they were
Okay.
using to get in and out. The doorway at the porch is actually blocked because that's their living room on the other side of it, I believe.
Oh, okay.
So
Like I say, it's none of our business.
yeah.
And it doesn't really, I just couldn't help but wonder.
Yeah, it'll be like a laundry room, bathroom, mud room type situation, I believe is how they're trying to lay it out. You guys usually don't get into the actual use on
No,
the
it's
interior, but
just,
that's, I think, what they're using it for. And like I said, they are trying to keep the structure livable for them moving forward, so they don't have to go upstairs to have guests or themselves use a restroom.
Well, it seems to me that the outside of the house is very well maintained, and they've tried to maintain the look of the original structure. I love the scroll work and the peak of the roof and all that. So if they're going to try to match all that, I don't think I've got a problem with it, but would entertain comments from anyone else on the committee.
Greg here. I think it seems like a very sensible addition, and in keeping with what they've done. The house is already vinyled. I say no biggie, in my opinion. Seems like a good project.
This is Michael. I don't see any problem with it either.
Okay, well, I think we can dispense with this fairly quickly then. I'll entertain a motion to approve this request.
This is Michael. I make a motion, we approve it.
And second,
This is Edie. I'll second it.
okay, we have a motion on the floor moved and seconded. No further comments. We will call the question then. All those in favor say aye.
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 And all those opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you, Megan.
Sure.
And to other business, the design guidelines discussion.
Okay, so I was planning to start on page 22, similar fashion to the last time, and just mention the section, and if you had comments, move along through, if that's okay with everybody, or if you all had another method that you would like to use, I'm open.
That's fine.
1 second here, I'm going to switch to that screen. For those of you that are viewing, can you see that okay?
Yes.
Okay. So the first section under the guidelines, page 22, discusses context and site features such as view sheds, which is our first section of guidelines. Did anybody have any comments on view sheds? Okay. The next section is landforms and features. Were there any comments on those? Okay. The next section, we had plantings and landscapes. This would be hedgerows, shrubs, fields, those kind of things, with a set of guidelines on those. Did anybody have any comments there? Okay.
The only comment I would have there, Megan, is many of the landscapes in our historic, in our history have been filled with invasive exotics. And I'd hate to see us promoting the use of those, continued use of those exotics that are destroying our natural resources.
Okay. So would you like to include a guideline to use?
I personally, I would prefer a guideline that says, you know, use native plants that in a formal landscape. I'm trying to
Okay.
think how to put it, but what it's probably better to say the use of invasive exotics is discouraged. I mean, all the burning bush, all the stuff we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Greg here,
Okay.
how about just use of non-invasive species?
Is prohibited.
Encouraged.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I like that. I was trying to say it
Positive.
positively. You did it, Greg.
Using
Yeah, I was-
non-invasive.
You don't have.
I was just reading something this week about how many millions of acres have been lost to kudzu in the south.
Okay, that's a great point, and I have noted that one. Okay, on to fences and walls. I know this was something that Gary had mentioned before. Did anybody have any comments on fences and walls? Okay. Driveways, walkways, and parking areas. All right. This is a big one. Accessory buildings. Were there any comments on accessory buildings?
Did we talk about this last time?
So I think that we strictly talked about the different architectural styles last time, and we left off on the secretary standards. So I don't remember us talking specifically about accessory buildings or it being mentioned before this, but there is a section. Let me double check that.
I think we had a short discussion, but you deferred it to this discussion.
So accessory buildings are mentioned here, and then I think we might have, as part of the landscape, I might have another section in here where you guys had mentioned it. Well, the previous HGC had mentioned it in terms of well, this is probably the right section. I'm reading the actual guidelines here. So yeah, this is the section where we were going to talk about that.
I know one of the things that disturbs me a lot driving through Washington County is seeing some of the accessory buildings that we're losing to benign neglect, or whatever you want to call it. And I wonder if there's a way to strengthen number 2, because that really begins to define the character of our rural landscapes especially.
There's not much we can do because we don't have a demolition by neglect ordinance, but in that number 2, maybe instead of saying should be repaired if necessary, to say should be encouraged to be maintained in good order, something like that.
Okay.
I'm just throwing that out there, but I mean, is that,
I think that maintenance is a really
That's
important point that
Yeah.
and maybe saying that accessory buildings and their distinctive features and details should be maintained to prevent deterioration.
yeah.
Okay. So rewording on number 2.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else? I thought I heard someone else there.
Well, this is a really tough one because, we're asking people to do expensive maintenance and repair for buildings that in many cases are not used and aren't going to be used. I'm not advocating for demolition by neglect, but
No, of course.
it's just really hard to ask people to spend that kind of money on something. I don't know what the answer is, but
Well, I think by saying
if there
should
was
or
something about reuse in there,
yeah, maybe you throw in a
finding ways to,
sentence that says adaptive reuse is encouraged.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, just like that house we just looked at, they had their out kitchen attached and was obviously another room in the house.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'm in fact sitting in a kitchen that is attached to the house now.
So am I, Tom.
All right. So we will reword that a little bit and then add some information in about adaptive reuse or incorporation.
Yeah.
And typically when people have lately been asking me about these, a lot of times the inventory sheets don't mention these. So unless it
Yeah.
says farmstead or there's a specific mention of the outbuilding, I tend to, unless I know the building itself and have visited the site and realized that it's, actually like a summer kitchen or something. Typically, if it wasn't mentioned in the inventory, I'm assuming that it's not significant to the property. So I feel like outbuildings are also one of those areas where we're really vague in the inventory as to which ones
Mhm.
are significant.
That's why it needs to be updated.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm just throwing that out there too, that typically when I would hope to apply these would be to ones that specifically mention them. So they would be your spring houses that are specifically mentioned or your bank barns or things like that, that this would apply to more stringently, I guess, not really stringently, but as a strong suggestion. Any other comments on accessory buildings? I'll work on that section some more.
Yes, this is Vernell.
Okay.
We have someone working on our house right now who lives in the property at the corner of Eastern Boulevard and Jefferson. There's I think it might have been a spring house, a stone structure, which is probably about a third falling down. And I asked him about it because I would love to have those stones. And he said that he has people stopping willing to come in and remove it and pay for those stones. So there is, you talked about reuse, maybe encouraging salvage of materials. Somebody, it's be very expensive for him to repair it. He has no intention of doing that, and has not taken up anybody's offer to buy them, to buy the stones and make it look as if that building never existed. That's the kind of offers he's had. So in the reuse of the building for the owner, but and if those materials are there, people will see them and probably approach the owner. But it might be good to mention something about salvaging materials if the owner has no use or is unable to save the building himself. I don't know if you can put that in, but that's the idea.
I would love to put that in. And I think if you guys are in agreement, I would keep that in the demolition section, because when I'm thinking of the guidelines, I'm thinking of those for people who intend to keep the structure for some purpose. And I'm trying not to mention that we want them to salvage in this particular section, but more so in the demolition. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any extra thoughts on that?
That makes a tremendous
I agree.
amount of sense.
Yep, good strategy.
Okay. If that's good, I'll make sure that we are specifically keeping outbuildings mentioned as well for the salvaging if those are considered for demolition then. Does that work for everybody?
Sure
That
does.
makes sense.
Yeah.
You don't want to
Yep.
encourage people to take things down because they might make some money on it, right?
Okay, perfect. Any other discussion on accessory buildings? Okay. Archaeological resources. We're quite weak in this area. So were there any comments on these? We don't have very many, at least sites on the registry for this. Obviously, we have a ton of sites that aren't on there. Comments, thoughts?
Doesn't MHT have some guidelines on archaeological resources that we might want to look at?
They do have some guidelines out there for documentation and archaeological resources. And then also for when projects are being considered. I was looking at some of those today. So would you like me to double check those and see if they have any guideline type information in there for addition to this section?
I think that would be useful, and possibly maybe invite Matt McKnight to one of our discussions to talk about it, because in working on a possible grant for the Sailor House last year, I think it was, I spoke with him and he said there's not much archaeological work that has been done out here. And it's really exciting to see that they did everything they did on the Jonathan Street house. But I think you're right. This is a little bit weak and maybe they can help us with it.
Okay.
Well, they can't, I don't think that they can to do
You're
I mean,
breaking up.
that's really 106 thing. Oh, sorry.
Oh.
I live where nobody cares about the internet.
I think you were mentioning that for things like Section 106 review or archaeological sites that are found through those types of things, that they're not going to be able to share locations and things that are derivatives of those particular things. But maybe seeing what we have locally and finding potential sites. I was reading a inventory sheet today for a property that mentioned that when the inventory taker took note of that property, they spoke with the owner and they are aware that there was the original foundation of a log structure directly behind the existing house, but it hasn't been explored. So things like that we know there's potential might be something that we could encourage some more. That's the kind of thing that I was thinking of trying to work with in this section. And then we can definitely check those other guidelines.
It reminds me of all the work that when the owners of the Cool Hollow House came to the HDC to propose National Historic Register listing. They had done an incredible amount of research on the property, what had happened, and what possible resources were there, and it just was amazing.
Yeah. By the way, Ann, did you see that house is up for sale now?
It's under contract according to the paper.
Wow.
Yeah. I was sad to see them go, but you
Yeah.
know, I hope everything's okay in their lives.
Maybe they're going to take on another project.
They did a beautiful job there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If they, liked it and want to take on another old house and fix it up, I think it'd be great for the county.
Yes, I believe they have a house in Funkstown
Ah,
that they've worked on, right?
nice. Well, good. We'll keep encouraging them.
Edie, did that summary that I gave kind of capture what your thoughts were, or did you have anything additional on this?
It's fine. It's just archaeology is very hard to put on the citizens because it's so expensive.
Yes.
But I think what you suggest here, if somebody's going to do it, use a professional, and otherwise, identify archaeological sites and preserve them, but you don't want to encourage people to do their own digging.
Yeah, I know when we had the meetings for the comprehensive plan, I'm not sure if it's the gentleman that you guys mentioned, but there was someone in attendance that said that even just going through a property where there are archaeological resources and putting a parking lot on top of it instead of completely grading the property and destroying the site is preferable.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
not necessarily that, you have to do a full archaeological dig, but just to encourage minimal grading on sites where, there's the potential. So that was another thing that I kept from that comprehensive plan meeting. And that might be something that you guys would think about for this if you found that feasible, would be to suggest that.
I think that's a good point.
Okay.
I do think that's a good point because grading is probably one of the biggest sins out there, so
Okay.
if people knew that they could potentially save something by not grading an entire foot deep.
Yeah. So I know we have,
Good.
obviously we have other regulations that we have to maintain, but I can look into that and see what the text part of that suggestion or guideline would look like to still coincide with some of the other ordinances and things that people have to deal with. But that might be something I can get added in there for you guys.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on archaeological? One of my favorite classes in college. Okay. Cemeteries and cemeteries and historic markers.
My son's an archaeologist.
I wish it was more than one summer. I didn't get to do more than one summer, but that was one of my favorites. So cemeteries and historical markers. Any additional guidelines that you guys would like to see on this one?
Can I suggest that you use the term? I'm not sure why, but
okay. Headstone instead of tombstone.
no, I was suggesting gravestone.
Gravestone. Okay. Sorry, you were breaking up there. So gravestone. Okay. Got it. Any other suggestions for guidelines or rewording? Okay.
Yeah, it might be useful to suggest for any work on a cemetery that they check the regulations or the recommended things that you do, because the techniques, because they're pretty specific about how things should be done
Okay.
with, you know, how to clean them, and people can do real.
Okay.
Lots of activity right now around cemeteries, so I'm sure through MHT you can, or the Maryland cemetery people are. I'm sorry, my brain's not working any better than my phone.
So if they already have some recommendations on there, I could actually go ahead and put those on the website, and then we can double check and see if there's additional ones that would be good for here, or point people to that resource as well, because it looks like they mentioned the Historic Trust in that very last one. So we could also, for the historic
Yes,
markers, so
Megan.
we could do something similar for the gravestones.
You might include a suggestion to contact the Coalition to Preserve Maryland Burial Sites.
Okay.
And I could give you contact information if you need that.
Okay. I will look it up and reach out.
Okay, great.
Anything else in cemeteries and historic markers? Okay. So then we're getting into rehabilitation of existing buildings. This is a newer, a new section. So the first little bit of this describes rehabilitation of existing buildings, and then we move into masonry facades on this page. Is there any comments on either of those two sections? Okay. We also have a section on wood facades. Any comments on wood facades? Okay.
I wonder, Megan, given the example we just looked at, the house in Downsville, do we need to identify that putting vinyl over them is not the preferred thing? I guess number 4 says that.
Underneath of wood facades, it does specifically mention that, but that was one of my questions for you guys. The masonry facade and the wood facade is two things. Another suggestion that I was going to bring up that I don't necessarily see here is uncovering log and not recovering it.
Doug
and-
Reed would probably say a lot of our log buildings were covered, were meant to be.
I was always taught that log was not necessarily meant to be uncovered, and that a lot of the material that they use in between the logs is not meant to be uncovered and very easily deteriorates, which causes even more maintenance. So that was one of the things that they always encouraged us to do, would be to put an appropriate siding, i.e. wood facade, back on top of the log. Is that something that you guys have encountered before? Is that something where we should address that under wood facades or under its own category? That was a question I had for you all.
It's true. Yeah, it's damaging to the logs to leave them uncovered. They were never really meant to be. I know it's cute, but
Yeah.
so yeah, I think in the case of log exteriors, it's highly recommended that they be with an appropriate siding.
Yeah, there's like a
appropriate-
brief sentence there that says some are constructed of logs, but it doesn't necessarily drive home the fact that they really need to maintain that breathable layer there.
Yeah, maybe we reverse that and word it in terms of we would discourage exposing logs to the exterior, elements,
Okay. Okay.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
We can
I
hear you, Cornelia.
Yes. Okay. I lose track with star six. My understanding was that as people could afford it, they covered the log. It might be with clapboard, it might be with stucco, but they knew to preserve it. So certainly to discourage uncovering and leaving exposed the log.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's what you were talking about, Tom.
Yes.
Yeah, if you had
That's good
exposed
wording.
logs, it was like putting a sign in the front yard that said we're poor.
Yeah, you couldn't cover it.
Yeah, that was,
So, if they need to uncover the log, they do that on the interior, not the exterior.
good point.
If they want their house to survive, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Any other additions to guidelines for wood facades?
No.
Okay. Doors and windows. I know you guys have got to have some comments on doors and windows. Oh, I'm surprised. This is a pretty full section though. It was pretty pretty well
kidding.
expanded upon previously. So you guys don't have any additions or things that you've encountered since this was written that need to be added? All right.
Good.
Roofs. Any comments on roofs? All right. Porches? I found this one a little bit tough lately because some of the porches that are on the inventory pictures are not the original porches, and I'm not great at dating porches. I need to review porches.
I mean, you do say maintain and repair original existing porches.
I found this tricky though, because today the same inventory sheet that I've been mentioning, the porch was added in 1920. And then they apparently removed that porch and put on one that to me looks more close to what would have been there originally. It's more of a stoop than a full length porch. So these tend to be kind of fluid for me, which is why I'm glad that you guys have to make these decisions on what fits.
I mean, generally, there is what you want to stick with, unless it's like it was put up last year. But, there are, like you say, there are Victorian porches that replaced colonial porches or what, So do you take down the Victorian porch because you have a an earlier house that probably had a different porch. Most architectural historians would say no. So I'm kind of stuck on the term original existing porches
Yeah, I was wondering
because
if
the
we could,
existing porch might not be original.
yeah, I think that's where I was going with my long-winded story, is that whether that should be reworded a little bit differently, because I know I've been struggling with that lately, where people have had porches that they're adding that still match the character of the structure, and you guys have reviewed them, or they again, the porch doesn't match what was in the original inventory, but it doesn't look like you guys reviewed that particular change. Is it necessarily a bad thing that that porch is there now? So it's the wording. Just for me, if you guys had any suggestions for that, I'd be open to updating that if you guys are.
Take out the word original.
Well, I would, yeah, I might say maintain and repair existing historic porches.
Okay.
I think the point is that you don't want historic porches to be changed. If it's a modern porch, then I don't think even MHT would have anything to say about it.
Got
You know,
it.
if they want to take off a modern porch, they can take it off.
Okay.
But just are
Is
going
there
to have the
something-
character defining features.
Is there something about the porch that would be existing, matching the period of preservation? You know, a house built in 1790 got changed a good bit, so 1870 comes along, and if that's the period that is being restored, then the porch appropriate for that time period. Yeah, it's not the original porch that might have been there and might not have been there. So matching the time period of the restoration. Does that make sense?
It seems to me when I listened to an MHT presentation on loans for preservation, they looked at the building as it existed when, at that point in time, when you were applying for the loan.
Right.
Yeah.
And did not require, a matter of fact, discouraged going backwards if there was something
Yeah.
that had been added during its history.
Right.
I think our guidelines should be somewhat consistent with that, I would think.
Okay.
But that is a
But we
tricky
are,
one. Porches get changed.
Yeah.
You see the outlines on the side of the house. And that used to be there, but just exactly when, and something else is put
well,
up and
in that
taken
case,
down.
it's okay if you have evidence, clear evidence for what was there before. It can be okay. But it's kind of a shame to, if you have a real, not as old as the house, but it's kind of a shame to remove that thing that's not old.
Well, that's true too, because, you know, that's part of the history of the house.
That's kind of what I was thinking, was if somebody's got, say, a 18th century house, but they want to restore it to mid 19th century look, maybe there was an addition onto the house or something. You know, I kind of hate to say, well, you need to keep the 18th century porch if you're restoring it to a later time frame, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, I wouldn't recommend removing the 18th century porch.
No, but I mean,
It's
if they were
already
going
gone.
to add something on as a new porch to match the house, we would want to match it to the time period that they were restoring it to.
Yeah.
But that's probably getting more into the weeds than we need to do.
Okay, so we're just
I would just say maintain and repair existing
existing.
historic porches. And if it's not historic, then we don't have any say anyway.
Got it.
Good point.
I think that works really well for what I was trying to describe as well. So I will update that language. Is there anything else on porches? Okay. Details and ornamentation. All right. So this is the section beginning new construction and additions to historic buildings. The first of which we kind of touched on with the first review, talking about the location of additions. Did anybody have any comments regarding location? Or scale? Proportion or rhythm? Any comments on either of those two categories? All right.
What do you mean by rhythm? What is rhythm?
I think
Spacing and
rhythm,
repetition of building.
Yeah.
Oh, windows. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to skim it as we go through.
oh, sorry.
I think in the context of this, you're talking about the rhythm almost of a streetscape when you're talking about a townish landscape where you don't have something that sticks way out from the other buildings.
That's what I was like. Your front yard setbacks are similar. That kind of thing is what I usually would interpret that to
Yeah.
be, but maybe I'm mixing up my, no, that seems to work with that. That's how I would typically, we talked about that in the training that MAHDC had given. There was an example that broke the street's rhythm.
Yeah,
Right. That sounds good.
I'm fine.
Okay. Massing or materials? All right. Roof shape. We do have quite a few of those. Any comments on roof shape? All right, and details and ornamentation. This is the section under new construction. Any comments there? All right. New site features and accessory buildings. So new construction of accessory buildings. Any comments on those? Okay. Protecting archaeological resources during new construction. I did not remember this section being here. So I think this is probably going to go over not disturbing, and it does. Okay,
Yeah.
so maybe I should, I don't want to move that. Do you guys
No,
have
I
any
like it
thoughts
being-
on this?
I like it being in both places.
Okay,
Yeah, it can be an issue in both places. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So maybe double check the suggestions that are here and make sure they coincide with the previous ones, and if they're applicable, keep them in both places.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay,
I think so, yeah.
okay. Any comments on this section? Okay. Plantings. Any comments on plantings? And I think I was double checking here. Did you want me to also include the same language that we discussed previously about keeping
Yes, please.
Okay. Non-invasives, got it.
Well, and
Okay, go ahead.
does planting include trees?
It
I would,
should.
yeah, I would say yes. Is there a comment you would have for that?
Well, I'm just trying to think, but I mean, some folks may want to use, say, a, pine tree barrier to block off, from sight, that sort of thing. And that, that's fine as long as it isn't like right up next to the house where it's going to promote rot or something.
Okay.
But I don't know how we would put that in there.
Well, I think that gets to the sight lines, the vistas in the previous section.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the view shed. The view shed, you mean, Ann?
Yeah.
We had a related discussion about fences in Sharpsburg with the Planning Commission about the height of fences. But Tom, you're absolutely right. You plant a tree and all of a sudden that tree is 30 feet tall and blocking a lot of what had been open before. So, but that's a really tricky one when you start controlling landscaping with the future growth of things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I can understand where I was thinking about that development we approved a couple months ago or looked at a couple months ago out there by the dual highway, where there's that old farmstead sitting in the middle of that, going to be the new development. And my first thought would be I would plant, big, thick pine trees on my land, boundaries to not have to look at the rest of it. But, if it gets, say, too close to the house and it starts damaging, you dropping leaves into gutters that back up and, cause the roof up to but I don't know.
We could put some language in there that it's encouraged that plantings be considerate of the foundations and walls and of the existing historic structure, and that they be spaced appropriately to not disturb the historic structure's function with its environment. We could put some language in there about that and find better wording than what I just used.
No, that works. And that's just we just took a tree out that was like 6 feet from our foundation and it was getting really big. And we thought, this is just not good for an old house. It's just got to get out of here.
Right. And there's some things that, I can work with Travis, our forest conservation planner. He might be able to suggest some wording for an appropriate way to word that, where trees are that are close to the house aren't a species that's going to grow to a certain diameter or whatever. I don't know that we want to get that specific, but ones that have less impact on the actual sites under the ground, or even, like you said, covering.
Maybe even just a sentence that says all plantings you should take into consideration any damage they might cause to the historic structure.
Okay. Keep it simple. I like that.
In reality, we never review the landscape materials, do we?
No.
No. But it's good to have this section in here for cases like what Tom just mentioned, where we could point people and be able to give them suggestions. And it's something that we might be able to comment on in the future for things like the Antietam overlay. But right now, I don't think we comment on these at all. These are suggestions.
Yeah, well, they're guidelines, and it's always helpful to many people who aren't familiar with things.
Yeah.
My big thing is the non-invasive. I don't want people planting tree of heaven next to their houses.
Got it.
Or golden rain tree.
Yeah, it will plant itself.
Sure will.
Any other comments on plantings? Okay. Fences and walls again in this section. Any comments on it here? Okay. Walkways, driveways, parking areas. And then patios, decks, and other new features. Any comments on there? Okay. Rehabilitation of commercial buildings. So this is an interesting section. I don't have a summary blurb that was provided by the previous group that wrote this. So if there's some topics that I should touch on in that, or anyone has suggested text, I'm more than willing to incorporate what you guys would like to say for this.
I wonder if Hagerstown has something, but I mean,
Okay.
the big thing is that commercial buildings really define certain historic periods of a townscape, regardless of whether they're still in use.
So I can check Hagerstown, and then I think, even though they're interim, well, not interim, but they're draft guidelines, I sent those New Frederick County ones to you guys, so I can take a look and see what they
I would
added in
check
for their
that.
section as well. If that's okay, I'll check theirs and get back to you on a blurb for this.
Absolutely. They've done a good job over there.
That sounds fine.
Okay. Any comments on the guidelines for storefronts? And the big one, signs on commercial buildings. So this is going to come into play in Antietam overlay areas, especially. And I believe you guys have, the HDC has seen some sign permits for this type of questioning.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on the information here? Okay.
I didn't get a chance to really review the sign stuff, but does it take into account new types of signage like digital signing and all of that? And if not, how do we update this so that it actually helps look at current technology?
There is information in here. I'm trying to find the exact.
Mhm.
It says internally lit signs are not appropriate for getting close. I think those electronic signs are not appropriate for any area, but
Amen.
Okay, so I can check and see if that's going to cover the types of signs that we've been getting. And make sure that covers the current technology. I'm actually not sure. I'm assuming it's LED signs now. I'll have to check into that.
internally lit or digital signs are not appropriate.
Oh, there it is. You skimmed faster than me. So this section, but it still does have a section on here for neon signs for appropriate commercial buildings, like in our growth area or right outside of that where they might have had those.
Yeah.
I do like that neon signs may be appropriate. There are some very famous examples of those.
Yeah,
Oh,
I appreciate
absolutely.
that sentence being in there as well.
Yep.
Did anybody have any other comments? I'll double check and make sure that that would cover what you guys would think of as the newer signs, but it should, but I'll make sure it does.
Okay. That sounds good.
All right, so I did do some checking on some of the questions that you guys asked the last time, especially regarding that sentence about MHT review. I got an initial answer, but I want to do the updates that you guys have suggested and reach out to MHT directly on that. I checked with the Maryland Association of Historic District Commissions first, since they listed themselves as a resource for us, and I thought they might know. As far as they know, MHT does not review, as we were discussing. They don't get involved unless it's of state significance. So I can try to get that hashed out with them on when they do become involved, and check there's some extra guidance online through their documentation stuff. So I'm going to look through that as well and reach out to them. Is there any additions that you guys can think of to these guidelines that you'd like for staff to explore, or any other suggestions on the document as a whole that we might not have touched on tonight? Okay.
All right. Okay. National Preservation Month update and recap, since we are now into June.
Yes. So I just wanted to give you guys an idea by showing you what the post looked like for our Preservation Month. I think it went relatively well. I have some good ideas for next year about what worked and didn't work. So I just have up on here the average number of people that viewed posts for the week, and then what the date of highest engagement was and what that engagement was. So typically the ones with pictures of local resources, surprise, surprise, did the best. So those were typically the architecture term of the week. And you'll see through here, this is week 1, which we were discussing what Preservation Month is and historic preservation. And the architecture term of the week was coin for that week. And we used the buildings here in Hancock for that. So we had pretty good engagement that first week. This is week 2, where we talked about the HDC. And again, the highest engagement was on that architecture term of the week. What kind of makes me want to do that a little more frequently. There's lots of terms that we could teach people, not just architecture, but maybe a historic term of the week that we could do. For the week of inventory and credits, just what I thought you guys would find interesting is that the highest engagement that we had was on the tax credits, which is good. I used the before and after pictures for that, and I think that really draws people in, especially when it's so dramatic as a black and white original inventory picture, and the picture that I took of the house as it was in April. So that did really well. And I think having a local example for that was great. You can see that had almost 2,200 people that looked at that, and 90 engagements, which was really high for us. So that was a really good week. So I was happy with that, because that's 2 of the most important things, the inventory and the credits. So, and then our week about demolition. This was our 4th week. It was a little bit of a slower week. Our highest engagement was the demolition topic. Again, I think it was impactful because of the photo. The public tends to react to those, I want to say HD photo, but it's just a photo that we took when we were out at one of the sites that got demolished in the past year. So just impactful for people. Making sure that we use local photos, I think, helps a lot. And we also promoted the historic window seminar and workshop at the Sailor House, and that had some good engagement on it and still some good outreach. And then we had our wrap up post, which was about our average number of people reached, and some pretty good engagement. There's a new group, Hub City Hunters, I believe, that interacted several times on some of these posts. And I'm not sure what their full goal is, but they are history buffs, of course. So they were liking a lot of these posts and sharing them again, which helped us. So that was great.
Good.
Did anybody have any questions about the outreach efforts?
I think you did a fabulous
Great.
job.
Yeah.
My only problem was I don't use Facebook very often, Megan, so I apologize. But there were so many posts on the county site that trying to find yours, if you'd posted like the day before, it took a long time.
Yeah. So I guess that's another thing to think about for next year would be what audiences could we expand to? I know that I had sent some information to a couple of other local groups about what we were planning to do, to see if they could coordinate with us, but I'm not sure. I assume that went out in their newsletters, but I didn't get a copy of those, so I'm not sure. If there's anything for next year where you'd like to see a little more collaboration, that would be my note to myself, is to check with these groups a little bit sooner. I know I checked with you guys, I think in March, so maybe approaching them at the same time to get coordinating a little bit earlier on these. But yeah, I appreciate that. I think it went really well,
Yeah, very
for just
impressive.
using one median to get to people.
Yeah. I'm really surprised at the number of people that it did reach out to. So that's very good.
Okay.
All right.
If you guys think of something later, you have my email. Feel free to share that
And
with me.
Thank you for
Megan?
giving us the shout out, the Sailor House workshops, the shout out, Megan.
Oh, sure,
Really
sure.
appreciate
Megan, I think I mentioned this when we were talking about this before, but I think I still like the idea of a billboard. You know, people, that lot of cars on the road, lots and lots of cars. Think about designing one or two to feature historic Washington County or historic structures in Washington County. Get a lot of audience.
Yeah, so that's actually great. Right now, a lot of the focus in the county is still on COVID stuff, but hopefully, while that's still important, there will be some opportunities for us to utilize some of the resources that they've been using for that, like our county commuter buses, maybe, or some of the other billboard type things that the county has access to that we could maybe promote some of the historic stuff on. So I will definitely make a note of that for next year, and maybe some interim stuff to see if we could get the word out with that. That's something I can definitely look into.
Good idea.
Anything else on those? Okay. I'm going to try to run through this staff report very quickly. So basically, I did 6 reviews that were just staff reviews. The majority of them coming in right now are just adding roofs or enclosing existing porches. And typically they've all been to the rear of the structure. So I haven't, I've just been going through those. They don't really impact the visible streetscape for you guys, and a few of them were actually in the town, which you guys don't review in. So I have specific addresses here if you'd like to know, but they're spread throughout the county. Dam 5 Road, Amos Reeder. There was one back in Downsville again, but this one was all the way to the rear of the structure, and it was a porch on a porch. So we didn't feel like those were really big changes for you guys. If you do start seeing more of these and you would like to see them actually before you, please let me know. But typically they're small, definitely under 300 square feet, but there was one that was 250. So they're small porches. And then we also have, we will have a permit for next month to review for Layman's Mill Road. It's a demolition of an accessory structure.
Oh, boy.
So I will get you guys details on that. That came in right at the end of the deadline. So we'll talk about that. And then Jill wanted me to give you guys an update on the demo permit policy discussion. The county offices are hopefully going to be reopened in the next couple of weeks. And from our county administrator, our direction is that within the month to early July, we should be able to get that discussion on the agenda. So I just wanted to give you guys an update on that. And then the election of officers that we had discussed at the last meeting, we are going to go over that at the next meeting. So any suggestions that you have for that, please go ahead and think about that and have it ready for the next meeting. I'll have it formally on the agenda. And we have a list for people that have applied for vacancies for the position if Tom resigning. So we have some applications left from the last time, but we really wanted to get your all's word of mouth out there for that and get some new applications in. And we're also going to have PR do a public information blast for that to see if we can get some new applications in for that. So if you could get the word out for people to apply on the county's website within the next 2 weeks. And if they need to have the information sent directly to them, please let me know and I can send the link. If you get me their contact information, I can show them on the website where to do that. But we're hoping to have that information in the next 2 weeks to get a bigger list of current people that are interested. Any questions on those things? Okay. I did want to give you an update on the education grant for MHT. We did get that. So we have $1,500 for education for this upcoming fiscal year. And I'm recommending, hoping that you guys will want to do some more of the MAHDC training, the HPC 101 and 102 training. It's not mandatory, obviously, but it's there for me and you to learn about law and procedures and then ethics and defensive decision making. Those are the two core courses left that we hadn't completed yet. And then because we have this funding through the CLG program, that keeps us open if you guys have those courses that you'd like to take that are in areas of interest. So please do reach out to me and let me know if you have some courses that you would like to take that require payment so that we can work with you guys to get those and keep your knowledge fresh and interested. Did you guys have any thoughts on these two courses? If that's agreeable to you guys and you have some dates in mind, I would appreciate if you could let me know by the next meeting, and I will go ahead and see about scheduling one of these at least for you guys.
They look very
Yes,
useful.
those were the courses that I voted for last time. So if you can schedule them, that'd make me happy. Great,
Yep.
thanks.
Okay. All right. So by the next meeting, if you guys have a couple of either days of the week and times of the day that you could give me for, let's just say, I know it's going to be awkward, but probably like the end of July to August because of vacations. If you can get me some time in there and then later on in the year so that we can try to schedule at least one. And if it turns out everybody's busy in those end of July and August time, we'll just schedule them for later in the year so that we can get the most of you attending as possible. Just let me know by the next meeting.
Sounds great. Thank you. They look good.
That's all I have. I think that was plenty.
Oh, very good. Thank you. So
Deb.
our next meeting will be July 7th.
I will be away. I'm sorry. I'll be away that week.
Okay. Well, thanks for letting us know.
Heads up now.
Okay.
Tom, Greg here. I'm also going to be away that week. However, it may very well be that I'm able to get my Wi-Fi going where I'm at and be at the meeting anyway.
Yeah, I'm assuming we'll still be meeting by Zoom through July, or maybe not.
As of right now, I'm going to say yes. And if it's preferable for people to be able to attend, like if, we can get Greg to be able to be
Yeah.
there, we can do both. There is a room set up where we can still have someone dial in. Or we could just do all virtual for the next meeting and then coordinate for the August meeting to be your first meeting back
Okay.
in person. But we should definitely know by the next meeting what the policy is on commissions. They said the buildings would be reopened to the public, but we hadn't gotten specific direction on the commissions yet. That was a separate email the last time. So as soon as Jill gets that, I'm sure she'll share that with me and with you, so we can schedule you guys out for that stuff.
Okay. Sounds great.
This is Deb.
Yes.
Commissioner Klein sent an email before the meeting started, and he also sent a text message to Jill. I wanted to let everyone know he is not at the meeting tonight is because his father has been admitted to Dewey's house.
Oh, no. I'm sorry to hear that. Wow. That's going to be a big blow for him, I know. I just got the email that he wasn't going to attend or wasn't able to attend, but I'm very sorry to hear that for the reason. Maybe we should, well, I'll send him a note or something. I think I've got his phone number and just offer our condolences as a committee.
Thank you, Tom.
Deb or I could get you contact information if you need it as well, Tom.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm sure he would appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I know he's very close. Well, sad way to end the meeting, but I guess that is the end of our business for tonight. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn. This is Michael.
Okay. And I'm going to second it myself and call the question and assume that we're all in favor.
Aye.
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 All right. Thank you all for your time and your expertise.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Aye.
Thank you, Megan, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.